Alongi is a sci-fi fantasy author and content creator from the Twin Cities. She is best known for her TikTok series, Cafe Latte, and she'll be starting a Kickstarter campaign next month for a new book in the series. When she's not creating or reading, she's either crocheting, taking long walks, or defending her furniture from her roommate's evil cats. And CM, the floor is yours.
Thank you, guys. Once you guys are done with Anne's Kickstarter, you can head over to mine. It starts in February. But Citadel is my debut novel, and if you want a signed hard copy of this, fill out the form that they're going to drop in the chat here, and I will send that to you straight away. And now that I've started talking, the cat is here, of course. So Citadel, for those who don't know, it's basically about telepathic, telekinetic wolves with wings. And Olivia, the main character here, is a nonverbal autistic woman who's going into their territory, basically to ask, why did you guys kill my boyfriend? I would like to know. Thank you. Dear Elias, I think you would hate me for this, but I love being out in the forest. I shouldn't, right? I shouldn't do a lot of things, but preferring to be in the place where my lover was killed is probably one of the big ones. It's just so much easier. Yes, it's hard. I have to forage for food and keep an eye out for predators and hope the demons don't tear me apart. But there are no people to disappoint or invisible social rules I don't know. Maybe it's just because I've always been so miserable in Citadel, but the forest, for all its dangers, has always been a safe place for me. Sometimes when I'm walking, I'll wonder if I'll chance upon where you died, maybe find your body. I know that's impossible. The tides would have swept you away within a week, but the thought is there. You're there. You're a ghost that won't leave me be. Aestus, a holiday, starts tomorrow, and I remember how you would sneak snacks into all of your pockets and my purse when everyone else was fasting, and you'd bribe me with them so I wouldn't tell. I wouldn't have told anyone anyway. You know that, right? I had to sew up a hole in my shirt yesterday, and all I could think of is how horrible you were at it. Give you a bit of wood to whittle, and you'd make a masterpiece in an hour. Ask you to do some very basic sewing that everyone else mastered by the time they were 8, and you'd prick your finger a dozen times and swear every time. There's a demon howling right now. I wonder if that's the one that killed you. Love, Olivia. Olivia tore off a piece of meta bread and ate, listening to birds twitter and watching the clouds drift overhead. After she and Elias had been dating for a couple of months, they would lie on the roof of her house or a quiet patch of farmland and watch the sky. If it was daytime, Elias would describe what he saw in the clouds while she tried to draw it in her sketchbook, mystical serpents and wolves and doves. At night, Olivia would tell him about the constellations. She'd had a brief infatuation with astronomy when she was 14, so she'd read everything she could get her hands on and, years later, told Elias. They would make up ridiculous stories about the demon tail, the great archer, the celestial carriage, and all the others. Now, she sat on one of the branches of the flooded forest. The water stretched beneath her, reflecting the shadows and orange leaves above. The surface was so close that if she dangled one of her legs over the side of the branch, she could dip her toes in. A gap in the trees over her head provided her with a clear view of the sky, a cheerful bright blue. She'd been walking for hours and had kept going long after the sun rose to get herself a head start before stopping to eat. She considered setting up camp here, then decided against it. She didn't think anyone would bother coming after her to retrieve the town freak. But it was safer to put as much distance between herself and Citadel as possible before letting her guard down. She finished her meal and kept going, traveling from tree to tree until sundown. I'm blurry, and I don't like that. The tent she set up on a thick branch was tiny, not even big enough for Olivia to stretch out. She had to bend her knees at least 90 degrees and keep her arms close to her chest. Part of it was to limit the amount of animal skin needed to make a tent, and the other part was to force the body to curl up and conserve heat. Add a blanket, position the camp so the body of the tree blocked the wind completely, and it was downright cozy, if a little cramped. She kept to a strict schedule. Wake up at dawn, take down the tent, tend to her hair, eat a bit of breakfast, walk for 6 hours, eat lunch, walk another 6 hours, possibly with a snack break, set up camp, eat dinner, sketch, go back to sleep. If at any point she saw a potential meal like wild berries, snails, or birds to hunt, she would pursue it. As she was essentially going in blind, following the sound of howls, There wasn't much of a specific direction she had to go, except perhaps toward the general area where she'd encountered the freckled demon. The water gradually receded throughout the week, slowly revealing more and more of the forest floor until it was dry enough to walk on the ground. With it being midsummer, it was warm and temperate, a slight chill in the breeze the only thing encouraging people to wear long sleeves. But that was in Citadel. With almost every inch of the forest shaded, it was a few degrees chillier. Olivia was glad she'd brought gloves and extra layers. Life in the forest was brutal in its simplicity. For all of her preparation and training, she knew she was running on a lot of luck. She had to find the friendly demon before something else found her. On the seventh morning, she rolled up her tent, which she'd set up at the base of a tree. The first 3 days, when she'd traveled by branch, she'd had access to the fruits that grew up there. But while walking on the ground was safer when it was dry, she didn't have easy access to that food. She'd considered staying in the branches all the time, but even if she didn't factor in the risk of taking a wrong step and plummeting to her death, or at least a very painful injury, it was slower and more difficult than just walking on the ground. She was just about to open a jar of preserved sawbibs, a salty sweet fruit that was one of her favorite foods, when she felt a prickle on the back of her neck. Someone's not muted. Instincts keep you alive, Peterson had told her once. If you get the sense that something's wrong, then chances are something's wrong. Don't argue with it, just get out. She set the jar in her bag and picked up her bow. She slowly scanned the area, looking for anything amiss. Nothing but open space and massive tree trunks. Insects buzzed near her ear, birds chirped, hidden in the leaves. Somewhere in the distance, a demon howled. Olivia looked up. With a startled shriek, she dove out of the way of the charging demon that had tried to drop on her like an avenging angel. It snarled when it missed. Olivia hit the ground shoulder first, rolling with the movement and jumping back on her feet. It was not the freckled demon. This one was much larger and older, given the specks of white around its muzzle. Its fur was slate gray, and its wings were tipped with black. It was such a simple, beautiful, grayscale design that Olivia's fingers itched for her sketchbook. The demon spread its wings and growled, stepping closer. Wait a minute, she thought. This is perfect. Olivia dropped her bow. The demon paused, regarding her with narrowed eyes. She really hadn't thought this through. She looked to her pack, next to her sleeping roll. Her sketchbook was in there. She took a step. The demon lunged. Olivia jumped out of the way, hitting the dirt hard. The demon pivoted, wings spread for balance as it turned on her, teeth bared, primed to rip and rend her flesh. Olivia pulled the knife from her sheath and threw it. The blade hit the demon's front leg. It did not sink into the flesh, but it was enough to get the demon to yowl and skitter back, enough time for Olivia to grab her bow. The demon shot into the air, broke through the leaves, and was gone.